the recording going. Is that out? Yeah. All right, and good morning, everybody. Once again, we're getting ready for community conversations. We do have Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott with us, as he is and has faithfully been since the very beginning. This has been one of our longest running segments at KLEK, and we are just so thankful. Excuse me, the Chief is joining us today. We've just been talking a little bit off the air. We will get Chief's reactions to the situation in Memphis, and of course, we will also talk about all the things going JPD. So if you're watching, share this video and definitely engage in discussion. Drop your questions or comments in the Facebook Live feed. So everyone stand by. We'll be going live in about 1 minute. So while waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead and get my shares on. All right, so got about 30 seconds now. Got a few people on the Zoom, I see. Well, not on the Zoom, I mean the Facebook Live. All right, and we're getting ready to start. KLK 102.5 FM. Good morning to you on your Wednesday. It's February 1st, 2023. This is Community Conversations. Kevin Wonder is here in the studio with you. And this is February 1st, 2023. And as always, on the first Wednesday of each month, we have Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott. And as always, we are thankful for having Chief Elliott with us. So, Chief, how are you doing today?
Hey, I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So basically, as we were talking off the air, always these episodes of Community Conversations are always difficult because we're dealing with another unfortunate incident involving police, but we do have to talk about it. And of course, we are talking about the situation with the death of Tyre Nichols in Memphis. But as I was saying to Chief, I wanted to kind of get his perspective from a different tack that may have not have been discussed elsewhere, and that is being Chief of Police. Of course, when this came to light, the 5 officers involved were immediately fired. Right. And so I want to kind of get Chief's perspectives as a Chief of Police, as someone, you know, who has to sit in that chair. So just want to kind of get your thoughts on how that was handled, and what are your thoughts?
Okay. Well, again, thank you. First, let me by starting this out by saying I want to say our deepest, on behalf of the department, our deepest condolences go out to the family and friends of Mr. Tyre Nichols and the city of Memphis. As a department, we strongly condemn the actions of those officers that were involved in this incident. We feel that officers must treat everyone with respect and understanding, and should be held to the highest standards of conduct. So I just want to kind of start out by saying that. So as I move to the situation itself, as we all watch the video in disbelief and horror, it was just a sad situation that we had to witness Friday evening. You know, as being a chief, you know, as I view the video, you know, I realize that the actions of those officers will affect every law enforcement agency across this country. because people will have distrust in law enforcement, and the actions of these few and the few that have done stupid things in the past is not indicative of the good work that law enforcement does day in and day out. There's hundreds of thousands of contacts with the public every day across the country, and everything, most of it goes without incident. So for the most part, law enforcement's doing things right. But again, you get a situation like this. It was bad. It was just, I could go into words, and then I could use words that probably shouldn't say on radio on how I felt about this. But as we look at it overall, I would commend the chief in Memphis, how she handled things. When all this came to light in the news media, obviously folks are wanting to see the video as soon as possible, and their decision to release the video along with the indictments and arrest the officers kind of in conjunction, I think was good timing. I think by having those arrests made about the same time, it diffused some of the tension that could have taken place in that situation. So, I will commend them on that how they handled it, and the timing of the release. And then, Mr. Nichols' mom, the fact that she, got on and asked for peace and calm through this. I know that's, she's dealing with enough as it is. And then, thinking of her city during this time, she's certainly to be commended for that also. But terrible situation. As any chief or sheriff, looks at this, and, you always take a look at these situations and make sure that you have things in place to prevent, or hopefully make sure these incidents don't take place. And if they do, that, you react and deal with it in a timely and swift manner. Just a few years ago, back during the George Floyd incident, we sat down, our command staff sat down, and the duty to intervene policy, we had that drafted and put in place. Probably one of the first agencies in the state that I'm aware of to have this in place. We felt that strong about it. And then the state followed suit.
And just not to interrupt you, Chief, but for those who may not know, kind of explain what the duty to intervene policy is.
Yeah. So, if another officer is seeing an officer doing something that's inappropriate, they shouldn't be doing, then they have a duty by policy and now by state statute to step up and go, hey, you're being heavy-handed here, or this is not right. You're doing the wrong thing. Let me handle this and take over. And so it's any officer arrives on the scene, they have that duty. If they see something that's not right, to put a stop to it and then report it. And like I said, we were the first to come up with a policy. Then it was soon adopted by the state. And now all agencies in the country have been mandated to have this policy in place by the Department of Justice. So this was also an infraction by the Memphis officers. Each officer that arrived on scene had that duty to intervene. As they arrive, if you would have followed that policy and seen what was going on, they should have stopped that. And, it wasn't going as far as it did, but they didn't. And so now they put themselves in the same boat as the person that made the initial contact. But,
And of course, Chief, like I remember in CPA, we were taught that, officers, when trying to effect the arrest, use, whatever amount of reasonable force is necessary to do that. But, once you get that person on the ground and cuffed, then they are restrained. You're not supposed to still keep
that's
beating on them.
No, that's when it stops. I mean, and you guys say, when you say reasonable amount of force, what is reasonable? We have different tools on our belts that we can use to get the individual subdued. But again, once that has happened and you get them cuffed, and all that needs to cease. And then if the person has injuries, then they need to be taken to the hospital and checked out.
Now, is that also in the duty to intervene to render aid once the person is subdued and the arrest is effected?
Yeah, so I mean, rendering aid, it's whatever aid that you're qualified to do, as whatever your skill of medical training is at that point, until you can get a next level of aid there, such as an ambulance, EMTs, paramedics, whatever. But if that person has some kind of bleeding or whatever, and the officer has first aid kit or whatever, they can do something till that ambulance gets there to help out. But again, it's just taking care of the individual. If individual's pepper sprayed, then that officer has to make sure that person gets decontaminated. We have a procedure you go through to get, to stop that burning sensation. And so it's the officer's duty to assist in that process.
Okay. And Chief, and of course, you mentioned earlier about how things like this make it harder for departments across the country to bridge the gap and to build that trust. As you mentioned off there, you spent 8 years building that trust, and then you look across the river and see something that could destroy it. But I imagine something else that could hurt with is recruiting as well. It may make the person who was thinking about joining the force and making a difference be like, well, if this is how officers are going to act, do I really want to be a part of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough times for recruiting anyway, due to low pay and the negativity of law enforcement, what's been portrayed in the media in a lot of cases. So, we're not overloaded with an abundant amount of applicants. And that's the same for about any law enforcement agency across the country. And then, you get an incident like this in Memphis. It doesn't help us by any means, but our goal is to, one, be as transparent as we can about anything that comes up and deal with it in a timely and swift manner. And two, we're constantly trying to bridge the gaps in the community with our community outreach projects and make these connections. And hopefully, our community will have trust in what we do day in and day out. I can't speak for agencies across the country. I can only take care of the agency that I'm dealing with, but my goal is to lead this agency by example on how things should be done. And, I put myself in the forefront when things go bad, as the protests with the George Floyd incident came up. As we talked about earlier, I felt it was important to get on the radio, KLAK, and make statements. Protesters out front, I felt it was important to address the crowd personally. So, we want to do things right, and I think our officers do the right thing. And if there is something that doesn't meet our policy or our expectations, then we certainly deal with it. And we have had in the past. We've had officers that may have had policy violations or did not meet my expectations, and I'll get rid of them. I have no problems in that, because I've worked long and hard for the past 41 years and trying to make this profession as professional as possible and doing the right thing. And when somebody comes along and tarnishes the badge, I take it personal and I find it offensive, and I don't want them working here.
Well, Ben, I do have to commend you on that, Chief. You have, like I said, you have done what you said you was going to do. And I remember when that happened, when, word was getting out about the protest, Mayor Perrin at the time immediately called and rushed to the studio to come on KLEK. The day of the protest, you actually met with the crowd when they got to the police station. You spoke with them, the chaplain, Reverend Blackmore. Right. And I think that sent a strong message that day. So we're going to go ahead and transition, as you mentioned, we were talking about the recruitment of officers. So currently, how many officers are you down? And of course, for those who may be interested, let them know how they can sign up.
Okay. Currently, we have 4 positions open right now, which we're, I guess, better shape than we have been in quite a while. We're allotted 175 student officer positions, and we're currently 4 short. Uh, we've just completed a test back in January, so we're doing backgrounds on those candidates. We have another test in the month of February. So again, if anyone is interested in becoming employed in law enforcement and choosing this as their profession, then you can go to our website, jonesboropolice.com, and see what the requirements are. And then you can go to the City of Jonesboro website and get an application started. Sergeant Shay Racy is our recruiting officer. If anybody has any questions about the recruiting process or the job itself, they can certainly reach out to him and get those questions answered.
Okay. And of course, we also talk about, like you mentioned off air, about CPA, which I definitely encourage everyone to join. We've had 2 of us from KLEK now do CPA. I did session 2, and Allie Taper just did the most recent session. And of course, can't say enough good things about CPA, especially in times like this. This will be a great program for you because you will get exposed to a little bit of everything. You'll get to ride in the car, you get to shoot the weapons, you'll learn about the SWAT, K9 investigations, you'll do the CSI, you'll learn about more about Chief and the job and he does and how the administrative and command structure goes. You'll tour the E911 facility, the jail. I mean, literally just about you name it with law enforcement, you will get exposed to it. You will get a chance to ask your questions, to have dialogue, to vent. It is a safe space. You can come in there and you can say, you know, I don't like what you all do. I don't believe what y'all stand for. You won't get arrested. It'll be a good discussion. And you may even have a change of heart at the end of it. But even if you don't, you at least know what the procedures are. So that's kind of like my little plug for CPA. So I'll turn it back over to Chief.
Well, you're exactly right. We've had several people in the class come in before, and we always ask the first night, what do you expect to get out of the class? Why are you here? And we've had people come in and say, I don't trust the police, and I'm here to see what you do day in and day out. And by the end of the program, that person had a change of mind, and is still a big advocate here today.
And you have hired people for CPA before.
We have. Good thing about it, some people that kind of think about getting involved in this job, this is a way to get exposed to it without making a career changement. And you come in and go through the program, and we've hired officers, we've hired dispatchers. Last class, a young lady hired on at dispatch shortly after the class. So then I've had civilian and records position filled out of the class before. So a lady that was retired teacher, loved the class so much, and we had an opening in the records. She came and worked for us for a few years until she decided she was ready to really retire. But a lot of good things come out of the class. One, we inform the public of what's going on. They get a firsthand insight of what we do, how we do it on a, every day. And 2, we learn from the public. If you have concerns about policing, then we address those concerns. So we want to know how it feels if you got stopped. Do you feel like you've been targeted, or what does it make you feel like if the police car gets behind you? Why do you have that feeling? And so we want to hear that conversation. Then from that, we can maybe do things procedurally different to make a person feel better on that encounter when we make that traffic stop. So, we've listened over the years, and we've made a few tweaks in the way we make those traffic stops, just to give the individual we're dealing with a little bit better sense that, hey, that's fine. We're here to do what needs to be done, and you'll either get a ticket or a warning, and we'll be done with this. But the program itself, we've graduated well over 300 people since we began in January of 2015. And we run the program twice a year. We do a fall session and a spring session. And our spring session will begin on Thursday, March the 30th at 6:00 p.m. here at the police department on Caraway Road. So if you are interested in this program, again, you can go to our website, jonesboropolice.com, and fill out an application and see the requirements for attending the class. The class is limited to around 25, 27 people. So our classroom, we can accommodate that fairly comfortable. And so there is a limit of number of people we can take per session. And we don't want to get the class too big where people don't want to interact with each other and the instructors during the course. But again, it's a great learning experience, not only for the student, but for us. We all learn, we in the law enforcement section, we learn something different every time from the people involved in the class. So it's great in developing good dialogue back and forth with people in the community. And so I think the program has been a huge success since we started it. Everybody that's gone through it has had positive things to say about the program. And we think it's doing what it's been designed to do, is bridge that gap in the community.
All right. And again, I definitely encourage you to sign up for the program. And it's free. And you get fed most nights. Maybe not, but you do get fed most nights. But one other thing that you also gain friendships. I have met some people in my class that I still interact with. And then, of course, there's the Alumni Association. And the Alumni Association are CPA grads such as myself that can volunteer at anything. Like, for instance, I volunteer at the Trunk or Treat each year. And then, of course, there's others that do the Shop with a Cop and anything else that JPD has going on. And, of course, they kind of just help to spread the goodwill of the department. And of course, you also get a nice, cool, fancy t-shirt. So lots of benefits and lots of perks. So let's now transition into community outreach, because more than ever, community outreach is so important. So what are some of the upcoming things that JPD is doing and being out in the community?
Well, besides CPA coming up, we do have the Dare Color Run that's been scheduled. Believe it's going to be on April 1st. And this year it is going to be held at the Central Baptist Church on Harrisburg Road. The church has built a new walking track around their properties at the church. So we're going to have the color run out there instead of Joe Mack Campbell Park. This is always a great event for the kids, and it helps support the DARE program. We do have one of the longest running DARE programs in this part of the country. And for the most part, this program is funded by donations and fundraisers.
Okay. And also, so let's kind of back up just a little bit, because obviously we have to talk about the Memphis situation, but currently here in Jonesboro, we are dealing with snow and ice. So just kind of what have you and your officers been on the scene seeing with that? And of course, can I just let the public know about the conditions and whatnot?
Well, obviously the street conditions are still slick. We do have another round supposed to come in this afternoon. So conditions are not going to improve probably till closer to the weekend. Looks like the weekend's going to warm up. We just encourage people, if you must get out, then just use extreme caution. Bear in mind that you're not going to stop on a dime. The roads are slick. You're going to slide. Have warm clothing, gloves, and a hat with you if you was to get stalled or slide off in a ditch until we can get to you or get a record to you. We don't want you to freeze. But of course, there's been several accidents on the roadways. Things still go on. Officers still have to respond to calls throughout the city. but the conditions like they are, just it may take them a little bit longer to get there. But we're doing the best that we can do with the conditions that we're having to work with.
Okay. All right, Chief. Let's see. We talked about recruiting, CPA. We talked about road conditions, community events. Also, so we're also starting the beginning of Black History Month. I think in the past, I think the social media team has done some things to spotlight the Black officers on the force. Do you know of any plans to do that this year?
Yeah, Rachel usually takes care of that, and her and Sally on our social media people, and typically every year we do that. So I don't foresee any changes. I'm not sure what they're doing exactly this year, but it has, they'll usually come up with something.
All righty. All right. So, Chief, as we get ready to wind down, is there anything else that you want to say to the listeners and viewers out there that we may or may not have covered?
No, again, we're coming into a new year, a new season. And again, I just want to thank the community for the support that they have given to the Jonesboro Police Department. I do think we're blessed by the support that we do have in this community. It is very much appreciated by the men and women that get out here and lay their lives on the line every day to serve this community. During this icy weather, again, just be careful when you're out on the street. If you have to get out on the street, just again, be cautious and don't get in a hurry, and keep your distance from the vehicle in front of you, because you never know when you may start sliding. If you can help out a neighbor that may be in need, or somebody elderly that may be in need of getting medicine or getting food or whatever, do a random act of kindness for somebody around you to make you feel better as a person, and help that person that may be less fortunate or not have the means to do for themselves. So take care of your neighbor, take care of your fellow man, and we'll be a better community.
Absolutely. And Chief, we thank you so much for coming on as always. And that's going to do it for this edition of Community Conversations. Of course, we got great gospel music all day long. So you guys be safe out there and have a great and blessed day. This is KLEK on 2.5 FM. I thank you, Chief. I'll catch you later.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
All right, you too.